Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thank you. That's good. Hello, and welcome to my little studio. I am Randy. I'm painting some beautiful acrylic flowers. I'm going to add some branches, and we're going to paint all that on top of a beautiful color copper. It is amazing. It's going to be so cool. Let's get started. For this piece, I'm going to be using a small canvas. Just an old brush for the copper. I'm going to use these two for the branches. The small one is a size 2 for the smaller branches. And I'm going to be using this flat straight line brush for the flowers. Some titanium white, some black, and of course some beautiful copper. I chose copper for this one, besides just being an awesome, cool color. I think it is going to give a very nice contrast to the flowers that I'm going to be doing, which I'm going to do simply just in black and white. It's going to be really cool. I'm going to start by covering up my canvas with this beautiful copper, and I'm going to give it 2 coats. Make sure got copper everywhere. Look how shiny that is. Beautiful. Now I'm going to add a few drops of water to a little bit of black paint. I'm going to mix it into a really nice consistency, just a little bit thinner. And I'm going to use that to start painting the branches. I'm going to start out by making a thick branch sort of across the canvas, and I'm going to start working my way out. I add just a few drops of water because it just makes it moves easier across the canvas rather than if you used it straight out of the tube. I'm going to switch to the smaller brush to make these really, really thin branches. It is so easy to do if you have a good brush. Very, very thin lines. Switching over to this brush I'm going to use for the flowers, and I'm going to add some white paint to a little over half of the brush. I'm going to take the other corner and just add a tiny bit of black, and make sure that you don't blend in the black and white too much. I'm going to hold the brush almost straight down onto the canvas. I'm going to push down a little bit and start moving the brush to the right, and at the same time moving it back and forth just a tiny little bit, very, very gently. I'm going to start making petals all the way around and have the black paint on the brush at the same spot in the middle every time I start a new petal. I'm going to make 5 little petals in this flower. It's always best with an uneven number. 4 petals in one flower actually just looks a little weird, I think. So I'm going to do 5 on this one. I'm going to move on to some of the smaller branches, and I'm going to do sort of the same technique by moving the brush back and forth, but instead of making the petals sort of wide and round, I'm going to make them a little long right next to each other. I'm going to make 3, sort of a flower that hasn't popped open yet. And I'm going to start doing this on a lot of the smaller branches. I'm going to pick a spot right on top of one of the thick branches, and instead of making a flower sort of all the way around, I'm only going to do 3 petals, a little more than half a flower. I'm going to do another flower that's sort of on top of this one, or just covers it up a little bit, so that you get 2 flowers close to each other. You can't see both of them completely, and that just adds a lot of depth and just something interesting to look at. I try to not make all the flowers the exact same size, and I also try to make the individual petals just a tiny bit different. Some are a little wider, some are a little more round, some are a little long. I usually only do 1 or 2 petals at the time, and then I have to add a little more paint. I don't want too much paint on my brush when I do this, because it will be very, very easy to mix in the two colors. And if it starts mixing in too much, it all just ends up gray. It's nice to have that sort of contrast. If you fill up your brush with too much paint or you mix it in too much, just rinse it out and keep going. I'm just going to keep adding more flowers. I don't really have a specific plan for exactly where I'm going to put the flowers. That's just something I sort of figure out as I go along. As you can see right here, you can add a flower that sort of appears to be behind the one that I've already made. Just put the dark tip of the brush between two of the petals and it looks like the one I just painted before was behind the other flower. The thing I really love about this technique is that all the flowers will be a tiny little bit different when it comes to color. When you use the same brush over and over again for these flowers, they will all turn out a little different. Some will be very white, some will be a bit more gray, some will have a lot of black in the center, some a little less, and I just absolutely love these tiny little differences. It's very easy, I think, when you start painting these flowers to just completely overdo it and just paint way too many flowers. I tend to do that a lot just because it's so much fun. You don't know when to stop. I'm just going to do this last one down here in the corner, and I'm actually quite pleased with the amount. Not too little and not too much. Just right, I think. Gonna finish these flowers with adding some tiny little dots in the center. I'm using the same brush as I did for the small branches. Very good for these little dots. I think this is gonna be good. Now I'm gonna switch over to this brush. I didn't show you this in the beginning. This is a very stiff brush. I'm gonna add a little bit of white and we're gonna start painting some light and shadows on the branches. Now, this is very stiff and I'm only just gently touching the canvas. I'm not pushing down at all. I'm just gonna start by adding a tiny little bit so it looks a bit grayish. I'm gonna add a bit more white paint and just dab it on in different places. Now, all of a sudden, you have so many different shades of light gray and white, and I think that just makes it look sort of very realistic, actually. If you used a really, really soft brush and just pushed it down on the canvas, you would just paint like a white line that would just be white all over. And I think this is a much better technique. It's one of my favorites and I use it all the time. It looks very realistic, I think. Now I'm just going to do the last sort of finishing touches on this one, and then I'm going to call it. Think it's done, and I'm quite pleased with the result. I would love for you guys to leave a comment and let me know what you thought about this video and about this piece, actually. So please let me know if you feel like you want to try something like this yourself, or maybe you already have. Please leave a comment. I would love to hear what you think. I guess that's it for this time. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will hopefully see you back again real soon.